And I'll share the results of the poll on the screen. Simon, would you like to come in at this point to give you a view of what you can see or what you think would obviously be useful as interaction? I will end the poll. I think we've come to a natural end with it.
So I think for me and probably the others on the call, it'd be interesting to know a little bit more about the system. So we have HPC facilities at Cranfield. It would be interesting to know a little bit more about the kind of the scale of the compute. So, for example, sometimes our PhDs hit issues. Is there specific GPU compute maybe, and some of this additional functionality? I don't know whether other people have specific questions about functionality. Please fire away in the chat. It'd be interesting to know a little bit more maybe about the platform.
Yeah, I think some of the scoring it's showing quite high. To find out more about the ability to create models and simulate at a larger scale. The data availability is ranking quite high on this, as well as the availability of models that are related to my work. So being able to access other models, I guess, outside of your current research area.
I think as Bethan noted as well, there's an absolutely tremendous amount of data becoming available, not just from modelers who are producing their outputs and filing those in DAFNI, but also from a wide range of data providers, and not just infrastructure also, but environmental and socio-demographic. The Office of National Statistics is a good example there. There's an awful lot of NOMIS data coming in, and the climate data and so on, the OpenClim data. So I think in that sense, DAFNI will be a tremendous repository of useful data for modelers, as well as the ability to run and develop models. So the data is absolutely key to that. And that actually comes back to some of the comments about the ontologies and the vocabularies and taxonomies that are used to help people to follow through those FAIR data principles to find the data as well. So
okay.
They're also, and this will come on to the next stage where we've had a break and we field questions, but there are also questions around security of the system, and that's particularly important here at Cranfield because a number of people on the call are in Cranfield Defence and Security. So there are specific security challenges there that maybe there needs to be a little bit more of a conversation about. But yeah, looking at the questions, I suppose one of the big questions is, you know, how big could you scale up a model? So if you're doing systems of systems research, knowing a little bit more about the platform. I say this as somebody who, when they did their PhD, used to get laughed at because as soon as a system came online, I would max it out with my work. So yeah, I suppose just some of that background as well. And that's coming from somebody. Steve and I have got PhDs at the moment who've hit issues with kind of parallel processing and that sort of area.
Okay, Brian, Bethan, and Tom, did you want to come in at this point? I mean, we will have questions later on. It's not wishing to put you on the spot.
Can I just ask, Marion, do these responses mirror the responses you've had elsewhere, or are they wildly different?
No, they do actually. One thing that ranks quite highly from elsewhere is the meaningful visualizations. And I noticed it's 22% on what I'm looking at here, but data availability and being able to simulate at large scale and create models, you know, at large scale also are another thing with accessing the data. So the only thing I think is probably different is the visualization part is a little bit lower. So maybe that indicates you've got quite a lot of visualization capability already in Cranfield. Yeah,
it might well be, and maybe this one for the questions. Some of the stuff we do is it could well be brute force compute requirements. And so it'd be interesting to hear from people a little bit later.
One observation again. I mean, it's almost inevitable that the data side here is coming up highly, and you know, for reasons of time, of course, Tom wasn't necessarily able to show the development of the modelling, and so a little bit more digging would show people how to use DAFNI for the modelling side as well. And I have, you know, there's some really good web tools for and sort of online help and so on for getting people up and running. Some very nice worked examples, and I would say really, if anyone was interested in this, to work through those examples as a very simple one using the Fibonacci sequence, and you can see how you can develop your model in Python, for example, and you can package that up. You can install Docker, you can containerize it, create that file, create the YAML file. Everything that led up to that process that then Tom took forward into the model is documented very, very well, easy to follow, and I think that would, you know, that would be a valuable thing to do to see how you do the modeling as well as the data.
So I was going to add about the data. To Frank, actually, I think that interestingly, you compare a comparison with other places. I suspect actually you have a lot more broader concerns than, I mean, data obviously is very important, but other places it seems to come out much higher. And I think you have some interesting broader concerns, particularly around data security, which is an area I think we would value a conversation, because I think it's an area where we would
Yes.
you know, value exploring what additional requirements there would be. I would add about data and our data holdings. We're kind of very much driven by our users and our use cases there. I mean, we don't see ourselves as, at the moment at least, a sort of reference set. You know, the primary holder of data. I mean, most of the data we get will be from elsewhere, and we would get data from elsewhere as it's needed. So as models and use cases are requiring data, we'll go and find the data and get it on the system, or get the users themselves put it on the system and make it available. But at the moment we don't see ourselves primarily as that. I think this will change as we get more use on the system and more output data sets in the system. I think we will have more of a collection. So at the moment it's you know, what data you need, and we'll try and find it and get it on the system. We are trying to make that more flexible and sort of linking through. So instead of having data necessarily on the system, we can kind of access other people's catalogs and then pull data down as we need it. That's, you know, something like the Energy Research Centre, for example. Energy Data Center. That would be a kind of approach we're looking at, but that is something we're kind of exploring how we do at the moment. Sorry?
I'm sorry, but I'm just looking at Niall's comment here about the mechanisms to access DAFNI. I wonder if you might say a few words about that. So, do we need to access DAFNI? How would we do so?
I was going to mention that a bit later, but I'm happy to say something now. I think, as Bethan mentioned, at the moment, you know, we're still in development phase. So what we have are sort of users who are kind of on our pilots, who are sort of trial users. That's quite expanded quite a lot over the last 6 months. I think we now have sort of 80-90 users or something like that. Well, we had only about sort of a dozen or so during the summer, so it's actually expanded quite a lot recently. Mostly working on our projects and our partners and on pilots and our champions program. It's not an open system from that point of view, but you know, the development phase does finish in the next 6 months or so, and we are transitioning to a more service-oriented environment, and then anyone who has sort of within the academic sector who has a relevant usage of the system that's suitable for the platform, then we would would try to make them available, give the system available to them, and we're looking at how we would manage that in the future. So yeah, very open to that, and we will sort of open up our registration at that point, make it a bit more straightforward. At the moment, as mentioned, it's contact us. Very happy, very readily and happily get people from Cranfield with relevant problems onto the system to try it out. Yeah.
Okay.
I just add to that. So, and we're going to talk about it after the break. But if you do have a use case or you'd like to have a go on DAFNI, do drop Marion and the team an email. They're eager for input and for use of the system and to help to develop the system. And also they're open to conversations where you might have a research project that would benefit from DAFNI. So there it's a kind of a mutual win-win situation, because DAFNI is looking for use cases to not only build the platform but sustain it in the long term, and there's this great compute facility. So do contact Marion and everybody. If you need any help with that, then drop Steve or myself an email, and we're here to help.